Welcome to the Squared Circle Pit with your host, Rob Pasbani.
Now entering the Squared Circle Pit is one of the co-hosts of the Power Hour, which you can watch Thursday nights on AXS TV following New Japan Pro Wrestling at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's bringing the rock after the wrestling. So what perfect guest here at the intersection of rock and pro wrestling than Josh Bernstein. Thank you for being back on the show, a two-timer.
A two-timer, wow. You know, I feel like my second run here, the Square Circle Pit's really going to be my best run. It's awesome to be here, Rob. And I've been enjoying the show so much. And you guys are hilarious. And, we're friends outside of work, and we love wrestling. So I just feel like I'm watching my friends talk about wrestling and just make the same jokes that you and I make. So I love it. Right. And so excited to see how far this has grown and come. And welcome, now you're over on Knotfest. Badass.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Josh and I, we have gone to many wrestling events together. We have a bit of a crew that we refer to ourselves as the Horsemen.
Professional wrestling, not like mud or Jello.
Yeah, or amateur. No amateur stuff.
Right? No Greco-Roman shit. Yeah,
no catch as catch. Well, there's some catch as catch can, but that's not the main reason we're there. But it's always fun to go. We have a group thread, so it's always fun to discuss pro wrestling with you. And what I like is I'm obviously a diehard, but I feel you have far more of a life than me, far more going on. You're hosting the Power Hour. You got C2 Comics, so you cannot watch as much wrestling as me. But I feel like our fandom is the same, so it's interesting to get your perspective because you're more of a casual, but who keeps up with the stories. Because that's the thing. You don't necessarily have to watch every show to know what's going on anymore. It's all online.
I think that's been like my whole life as a wrestling fan, right? Like I started, like many of us with the Rock and Wrestling and WrestleMania 1. But the great thing about being a fan is that you can dip out for a couple of years and be like, wait, that guy has a son? Wait, that's his brother? So like, and also like, oh, that guy's still wrestling? Like, I'm pretty sure I saw Sting wrestle when I was in junior high, right? Or still going, or Mr. Ass. So, I stay. I mean, other people would call what I have an addiction. So I just don't want to undersell like how much I watch. Other people would say this is a problem, and I should, grow out of this. But
see, it's relative because I would say you're casual, but like obviously you're still watching a lot of wrestling.
Yeah, for like a grown man with a family and the job, probably it's a lot. I imagine it's what people do for like charity or like religion, like in their life. Like that's what I do with like Monday Night Raw.
Yes, and you're converting others as well, because what I love to learn about is how your daughters are big fans of pro wrestling now. So that must be very fun.
During I never knew like when there would be the right time. And then when the pandemic hit, I said to my wife, like, hey, like if we're going to be trapped in this house for like forever, like we're going to start watching wrestling. And my idea at the time, I have two little girls, was to watch the Evolution pay-per-view because I figured, they'll see all these great women doing all this great stuff, and they'll get into it. And actually, it totally worked. And they watched the three Evolutions in a row. They love the Royal Rumble, of course, format. And I'll never forget, one day I turned on like Monday Night Raw, and they're like, "Dad, boys wrestle too?" And I'm like, "Yep." And it was, I basically got them in that way, and they fell in love with Charlotte and Sasha Banks and Becky, and it was so easy because they watched like cartoons and like Barbie and Descendants, and it's sort of like this one has pink hair and this one has green hair and this, right? It's almost like it was very easy to pick it up. They got me in trouble though. They told my wife like, "Mom, Dad made us watch this show last night where women wear bikinis and fight each other." I'm like, that's not what it's. Professional wrestling.
Fake news.
Professional.
Yeah, it's more than that.
I was like, wait, what are you showing them? I'm like, were you watching something inappropriate? I'm like, no. It's evolution. There's an evolution happening. It's uplifting. There's no more divas.
So who are their favorites now? Like now that they've been watching for a few years?
Oh yeah. Oh God. Well, heartbreaking. my youngest Tova was a huge Bray Wyatt fan. So that really sucked. And she has even, when he passed away, I posted she has a great, like, it's like fucked up for a kid. It was like, let me in with like a demon on it. Like he's like 6. They from the girls, they love Bianca Belair. They loved it's funny. I feel like they're too young for this, but I feel like they definitely they see Drew McIntyre and they're like, who's that? I can't tell if it's like a crush. Ricochet. They love Ricochet.
Oh, okay. So they love the handsome men. Yeah, like with Drew McIntyre, stuff. He looks like a romance novel cover model. He looks like a Fabio type.
He looks like what you would. Prime. He looks like he could be in a movie, right? He's like your hero or something. So like it's very. He's got that sort of crazy look. They were totally riveted by the Bloodline storyline like me.
Nice.
But they're I think the best. My sort of trick always is for friends that are not into it is make them watch Royal Rumble, because even if you're not a wrestling fan, that format and the excitement of what's happening and the countdown, like, it's just fun, and that's something that I always like, and we've been the last couple of years hosting like Royal Rumble parties, and I invite like all their friends, dads, and their kids over, and like by the end, like, we don't want to watch wrestling, and by the end they're like holding I have a scepter and like a crown, and everyone gets all royal, and it's pretty fun. So.
Yeah, and also there's 30 different characters, so for these people who have never seen it before, it's very easy to find somebody to connect with, or that
what we do.
out.
And I shout out to my friend Scott Butler, a longtime high school buddy, also a fellow wrestling fan, rock fan. He does this thing where, so brilliant, he puts all the names in a hat, right? And we generally, as casuals, smart Mark, I don't know where I fall in the categories, but we sort of know who the 30 entrants are going to be or who's rumored, right? So right before the match, write down all 30 names on scraps of paper, roll them up into a hat, and everyone gets 5 choices out of the hat. So you got money on this thing now. So you're watching, you're like, come on, Cody Rhodes, or when Ricochet gets eliminated, you're like, ow.
Right.
It's like a Super Bowl. It's like when people join the office pool, they're not into Super Bowl, but they get into it hardcore because they're about to win like $500 in cash. We do that, but you win a crown and a scepter and a Divas belt or a women's belt.
The stakes are important.
Stakes are high. You get to hold it for a full year. It's a full year.
It's like the Money in the Bank contract, essentially.
We don't honor what happens at Crown Jewel if they do like the world's greatest Royal Rumble. Like that doesn't count.
Only the traditional ones.
North America, yeah. We try to keep it official.
And obviously we're all AEW fans. I know you've also worked with a lot of people there. I know with Chris Jericho, of course, and I love also talking, because we come from the music side of things, talking about like the business stuff. And I feel like right now with AEW, the wrestling is great. The pay-per-views deliver, but I feel like it seems like they're not as hot, especially with their live events. I don't know if you've heard, but they're having trouble drawing at these shows.
Hard cam looking rough.
So you've seen it. Yeah. And like, I don't know, like I think about it and it's like, well, what would you do? Like what would be your advice to AEW? Like, how could they get people excited enough to show up? Because that's the hardest, right? Like, it's easy to click on a link, but to pay money and then have to drive and show up, park, all that stuff, that's asking a lot.
I'm gonna say it. I think it's obvious, and I think it's obvious what's sometimes missing there. And I got to give credit to the WWE. Like, I kind of think I think we kind of see what the writers do now. And this is where I struggle sometimes, even, when we talk about wrestling sometimes, like with, work rate versus storyline, like where WWE has done so great this year is long-term storytelling and basically giving me a reason to want to know. I've watched a lot of Japanese matches where I'm being told this in advance, it's a 6-star match, you got to watch this, it's so great, but I don't know who the heck these two guys are or why they're fighting. which is okay. That doesn't always matter sometimes, but man, when you're like, that's his brother and he betrayed him and he did this, and even back when we were kids, like I think Hulk Hogan has flirted with Miss Elizabeth, and that's a problem. Like even that storyline was done. It was already done in a way where like no one was wrong, right? Macho Man and Hogan, no one was really wrong. Both thought they were doing the right thing. It actually made an interesting storyline. If everything is like a super kick and like kicking at it too endlessly, it's like music, man. Like you need, it can't all be like, you need a ballad in the set. And I just think it's the same way sometimes. If everything's a false finish and everything's like that, that's exciting, but man, that's really hard to maintain, and I think I'll equate what's happening with them similar to what's happening in music, which is everyone was cooped up for years, and now like gates are back open and everyone's like tour till you die, tour, more tours. And the average Joe, the 9 to 5 or the ham and egger, hard times, daddy. It's hard out there. Can't afford to go see that, plus independent wrestling, plus WWE, plus every band, playing your town 5 times a year. Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah, and also I think they maybe they gotten a little too high with the ticket prices. Like we have made it a tradition to go to Grand Slam every year, and this year we did not go just because we looked at the prices of the tickets where we sat last year, and it was just like, whoa, like this is like a pay-per-view pricing. It's like I don't know if that's worth it. You
and I are so blessed that we've been,
yeah, we're also spoiled.
We're spoiled. Like you and I haven't. We don't pay for a lot of tickets, so I feel good about myself when I pay for tickets and do that. But even this year, right? It felt like something that, like, it wasn't like AEW revenue was down because me, you, and the boys didn't go to Grand Slam, but it didn't feel like it didn't feel.
I think it adds to it.
It didn't feel as like I feel like in the past. Well, God, that first one, right? It was Daniel Bryan Omega, right? Like, it felt like history was going to be made. And again, maybe we're just. Jaded,
I
right?
agree. I just think there wasn't that urgency, I think is what the word you're looking for. Like it's like, oh, something is going to happen here. I don't like the last year or maybe 2 years ago, the year after the pandemic, I must have gone in 1 year to like 10, 15 shows, like anywhere.
You were on tour. Yeah, you were.
Yeah. Like anywhere I was that they were there, I was like, I'll go. And part of the reason was because a lower bowl ticket, like I paid my way in. This was not me calling favors, because lower bowl tickets were like $50-$60, and I was like, yeah, that's like a night out, and that's fine. Now those same tickets are like $150. So I'm one person. If you want to bring your significant other or your kids, that multiplies very quickly, whereas that could be 3 tickets for $150 versus 3 tickets for $450. You're not going to do it.
It's it could escalate quickly, and I'm not saying that, listen, all these things are worth it. And awesome, I think it's, I always say this, I think like the music business could take so many lessons, especially the rock business, from what WWE does or what wrestling does. There's so many cool similarities. I find myself in the music side of things always being like, what would Vince McMahon do here? God damn it, kid. But we learn so much about human behavior and interaction, even by the way they're acting on camera. So I don't know. I think, well, here's a good thing they're doing. I'll keep it positive, is taking these pay-per-views and doing them in other countries is brilliant. It makes it like the one in Puerto Rico was awesome. The one, obviously what AEW did in the UK and the recent WWE one they did over there. Clash at the Castle were awesome, and those people are so appreciative that they, Crown Jewel. I'm sure I didn't get to see the recent Indian one, but I'm sure it's the same vibe. They're so excited.
The Saudi ones like even now, because the Saudi ones, they have actual fans in the area now, as opposed to like the royal family. So with the Saudi the show airs weekly there now. So to your point, they know all the stories. So it's actually a really fun big show with climactic storyline though. So yeah, I love the foreign shows because, like you said, they're very hungry to be participating. The best part,
the one in Puerto Rico, I mean, it was like I said, Zelina
chills.
Crying, and I was like, this is awesome.
That Bad Bunny entrance, I mean, with just the crowd knowing every word, like singing it, he could have created a riot there if he wanted. You know, like he could have got that whole crowd to attack.
What a glory! What golden age we are in too. Like when we were kids, like we got refrigerator Perry in like a battle royal, and it was horrible. Like, you know, or like Alice Cooper just stand there with a steak. Like Bad Bunny is like a great wrestler.
Yeah, he's doing Canadian Destroyers.
He's awesome. And the other one too,
Logan Paul.
Logan Paul is like, he's got a perfect heel. I was like, I would pay to see this guy get punched. This is great.
It is. I mentioned on the show here before. It's impressive watching him and being like, this is his third match. Like he's so he doesn't look like a celebrity. It's not like when Snooki was there, you know, in WrestleMania that one year. And it's like, what are you doing? Get out of the ring. Like he looks like he belongs.
Yeah, he's like Bob Barker level of comfort. He's doing
Rest
good.
in peace.
Rest in peace. He looks more natural than RoboCop teaming up with Sting. Most of all.
And well, now I think you might find yourself watching some more New Japan Wrestling because your show immediately follows. And what I like about the AXS shows, they only put the good stuff on with New Japan, much like with the Power Hour. You're only putting the good stuff on the Power Hour. For those folks that haven't seen the Power Hour, tell them about the return of rock music to television.
It's so exciting. The Power Hour is your weekly dose of rock and metal news. We play, this is a very novel idea, music videos on TV.
Wait a minute, what?
I know. It's sadly, as we realize in doing all these like press about it, like there hasn't, like the last guy to do that was my co-host, Matt Pinfield. Like there just hasn't really been any, I can't think of anything. Uranium? Like what was the last time, like, or a Headbangers Ball revival with Jose? Like it's literally been 15 years since anything's been on TV. It's that, I didn't realize it till it happened, but what a cool thing. You know, me, Matt, and Katie are friends off camera and we love each other. And we were doing this show for Twitch for about, we did this every week for about a year. For Danny Wimmer Presents, and we, the cool thing is we get to go to these festivals and interview the bands. And then we got picked up by AXS last year for 10 episodes. It was really warmly received, and they gave us another 8 episodes from that, and now a whole other season. But most importantly, for you wrestling fans, we are moving to Thursday nights following Impact and New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Rob, I don't know if you know this, fun fact, Matt's show Farm Club that he hosted for years in the late 90s, early 2000s, broke so many great bands, and of course produced by Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre, and hosted by Matt Pinfield, used to air Monday nights at 11 p.m. following Monday Night Raw.
I absolutely know that. I loved Farm Club.
So I have to think this is the gateway. This is our gateway where I've always wanted to be, to the intersection of rock and roll and wrestling. And hopefully fans will stick around, and we're going to be filming some stuff with some of the Impact and New Japan wrestlers as a show, because as you can imagine, like Bubba Ray Dudley, Moose, all these folks down there, or Eric Young are rock fans. And in reverse, a lot of the rock stars are wrestling nerds like us. So I'm always trying to put that chocolate in that peanut butter and make that happen. And hopefully fans will stick around, and I think you're going to see a lot of artists from the superstars from those worlds on the Power Hour. So it'll be pretty great.
Yeah, and I feel like you've throughout your career, you've gone out of your way to find any reason to integrate wrestling into your work, just to be around pro wrestling.
No one has ever asked for this shit. I promise you.
I mean, I'm right there with you. It's a growing market here, because it is funny now going to smaller wrestling shows. I do look around, and I like to look at people's t-shirts, and while you'll see the classic Austin 316. You're also seeing Cannibal Corpse, Power Trip. You know, like these, like people from the scene go to wrestling show, go to indie wrestling. You know, they're more likely to be, pardon the pun, hardcore wrestling fans.
I mean, we collectively, I was saying this to someone recently, we have our shout out to our buddies, the Horsemen. You know, we have our crew that are heavy metal industry people that also like pro wrestling, pastrami and the Mets, and we hang out together. And then, but there's probably at least another 10 people we know in the tri-state area that would come to that party and be with us as well, or that we see at other shows. There's also a West Coast contingent of us out here too. So like, it's more common than you think.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, like, imagine, you know, I know you're on the West Coast now, going to a show, you're at like one of these GCW shows, one of these more indie shows, and you look over to your left, there's Danzig hanging out, because Danzig goes to indie shows. Danzig likes a good grapple.
Mikey Way, you know, is a buddy of ours. Like he goes to those shows. He's out here, and yeah, we knew. I mean, before he became a wrestler, we knew. I mean, Andy Williams was always like,
of course,
I'm gonna be a wrestler. We're like, okay, dude. And not only okay, dude, he did it, you know, and it's incredible. And I see these guys in a lot of, like when we were at Rockville last year, being in Florida, like last year, Tommy End, Malachi Black. Him and Zelina came to hang out at the show. Bubba Ray Dudley was hanging out. And this year, it was funny because they know I'm the wrestling guy now. Someone on Wimmer's team was like, hey, there's a bunch of people coming. They say they're WWE, but we never heard of them. Do you know these names? And I'm like, he's in, she's in. Yes. It was like all of Schism and like Ava Rain, Drake Maverick. I was like, yeah, let them all in. And then I was like, hey, come find me. And I hung out with like 12 NXT people, and it was awesome. It did nothing. We just hung out and had a nice time. But it's the same shit, right? It's these larger than life personalities. We all have our day jobs, you know, and we escape by watching face painters or Kiss or Zach Wilde dressing like a Viking or a biker, you know, or people dressing like a cop or an Undertaker or, you know, a Samoan badass, whatever it may be. Like that's what we're, you know, it's, to me, it's the same exact mechanism, you know, the same exact fandom, you know, to appreciate. And that's, you know, I think a lot of other people like us see it too.
Did you ever see yourself being involved in wrestling? Like, could you see yourself being either a wrestler or a manager? Has that ever crossed your mind at any point in life?
When I was a kid, my next door neighbor and I, he's still a big wrestling fan. We're still in touch, but our fake team was Truth and Justice, the American Way. That was the name of our tag team.
Were you Truth or Justice?
I think I was Truth and he was Justice. And we were like, whatever, like, I mean, this is when we were kids, but it would have been like whatever like Team Mango looked like or Alpha Academy. It was like very American Gladiators. I think as an adult, I was always like, oh, I would get my ass kicked, but I'm a fucking smart ass. So like I could be a great manager. Like Paul Heyman's like my idol, and Bobby Heenan is like my idol. Like those guys, separate of just being a wrestling fan. Like I love, I look at them as like the things that Bobby Heenan would say in his line. Like I find myself on Power Hour trying to be like Bobby Heenan, or I want Gorilla Monsoon to be Pinfield, to be like, would you stop? You know, come on, Weasel, would you stop? Like, and that's how and it's funny with Power Hour, a lot of what we do, I base on Matt is such a legend, right? And so, our show is basically us talking about music videos, and we interview rock stars. And Matt is the legend, and he represents that older fan and the legend. And Katie's that younger, vibrant fan, and I'm more of a behind the scenes guy. But I realize my job is to be, Michael Cole, right? If you have Michael Cole here and then Corey Graves and Byron Saxton, I'm not sure who the current. But you sort of realize that someone's playing the heel commentator and someone's the face commentator, and someone's keeping the show moving, play-by-play or color. I started learning that's what Gorilla Monsoon or Bobby Heenan or Jesse Ventura or Vince McMahon were doing, or Shivani or Jim Ross. It's really interesting. Once I actually looked at it, I was like, oh, that's what they're doing. And I realized my job is they're such big personalities. I'm only going to get one line. I better make it fucking funny. So that's how I have in my head now, is just like, you're only going to say one thing, because they're, and they're radio personalities and they're famous. So like, they're going to do most of the talking. So once I get in there, I have to kill very quickly.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And you only have like a soundbite to do it.
It's pretty interesting. And I looked up to, like when we were doing our stuff, when, for those who don't know our former work, but like Rob and I would be, doing interviews for Metal Injection or Loudwire, Revolver, AP, whatever. I looked at, I loved what Jose, I loved Jose, still love Jose, and Jose was so good at it. And Possum, who I work with a lot at Revolver, and he's at Universal now. We're so good at this stuff. Like, I want to do what they're doing and just be so natural and conversational. And then our other friend, Corey Graves, we knew Corey at NXT, and Corey, wrote a column for me when I was at Alternative Press, and we became very fast friends. And then he got promoted to Raw in the middle of everything, and we're like, "I'll see you later." But he's so good at what he does. He is, and I was talking to him the other day because I was like, "Man, you're making like Megadeth references." I'm like, "Are they for like me and my friends? Like, who are you?" He's like, yeah. He told me he's gotten warned a couple of times. Like, "All right, buddy, tone it down." Like,
I love that stuff.
He'll get a Motorhead joke in there or a Metallica joke. I'm like, that's good stuff. But yeah, it's interesting now being part of a 3-man team. Like, it's like I go back. That's when I learned how to play bass. I could see every band differently hearing the bass now. And now, like, doing this, I look at wrestling differently. I'm like, oh man, that's what Excalibur is fucking great. Like,
he's keeping it moving. Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh, I see what he's doing. I see now. Okay. Like, he's fantastic, and Michael Cole's fantastic, and really have a newfound respect for those guys. Colt Cabana's great. We had Colt on that first boat when we did Jericho's Cruise, and I was listening to him, and I was like, oh wow, he's okay. He's really keeping this party going. A lot of respect for those guys.
That's another thing that you've been a part of a little bit behind the scenes is the Chris Jericho Cruises. I've been on one. It is a ridiculous party for quite a few days on the seas, and you're working this thing, so you have to balance partying and getting stuff done here.
Well, it's so cool because, like, we're talking about like living through history. Like, that first cruise was historic. I remember you and I at the port of Miami, like getting on the wrestler bus, I guess, whatever you call it, talent bus.
Yeah. We kept being around like all the wrestlers who were not in like wrestling mode. They're in traveling with their family, making sure everyone has their luggage and everything mode. And it was such an odd way to be around wrestlers as fans, like, because we're not getting photos with them or anything, but just seeing them in that environment.
Seeing them and like before their morning coffee, and we're trying to act cool, but at the same time being like, we're on the bus. I mean, it was, I can't remember all who was there now, but like, oh my God, it's Mick Foley. And there was wrestling gossip happening at that moment of Jim Ross is going to start a new wrestling league. So-and-so is going to start wrestling league with the guy from the Jaguars. So there was like a lot of like banter going on. And I remember that all happening. And then like on the boat, basically, Chris doing the podcast with the Young Bucks, and they were like, we're no longer the Bullet Club, we're now the Elite, and everyone's like, it's funny in hindsight now that sounds like a bigger deal. Everyone's like, cool, where's like the free beverages? And me and Chris, at the time we were set to do a photo shoot with everyone on board, all the main matches with the captain of the ship, and I gotten us all like captain's hats, and like basically like we're gonna do like a Love Boat photo shoot. So me and Chris and the Bucks and Cody, Hangman, and Marty Scurll all like go get escorted to this other part of the ship. And those guys instantly start talking business. And I'm like, in my head, like, I should not, like I should, when you're like, I should be part of this conversation. That was like all going off. And I think Chris Jericho could sense like that. He looked it over like I think Chris was also like, shit, like he shouldn't be here. And Chris loudly goes, "Hey guys, have you met my little Jewish friend Josh Bernstein?" So all he said out loud. And I punched him, and we were all laughing, and it broke the ice. But it was also like, I think it was also to be like, shut the fuck up, like we shouldn't be talking about this right now. And we all ended up at the front of the ship and did this photo shoot, and like, we had like the life preservers, and you probably, I don't know where those photos are, but it was a really fun experience. And when we got off the boat, 2 months later, Jacksonville press conference. Chris is all elite. It's on, right? So like we saw and JR was there. We saw the evolution, right? We all
It was all happening on the boat for sure. Yeah. And this was right before the announcement. Like this was October, end of October. Announcement was in January. So
I saw
I'm sure
Chris
Jericho
Lee,
was, he was probably still negotiating his contract at the time.
And it's wild because I think this is a public story, but like he offered that cruise to Triple H and NXT. That was like, hey guys, what do you think? And they respectfully passed on it and wished him well. So like it wasn't like he started a boat and was like, we're gonna start a new company, come after you. It was WWE's to have. And they in a weird way created maybe inadvertently created their own counterculture, or their own competition in a weird way. Not to say whatever, there was a momentum with the Bucks and Cody, and there was something happening anyway, and they
could have stopped it. Essentially, there were moments they could have stopped it, but because of their indifference.
I want to give credit to Chris because I do feel like, and I'll say you were there. Like, I don't know if everything fully would have happened if it wasn't for that boat and what happened on that boat. And Don Callis was there, right? All the TNT people.
Right. It was people from Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan. They all got together on that. It really was like a all-star crew. Like there's so many big names
Rey
just
Mysterio
available.
Was there.
Yes. Oh my God. I got to meet Rey Mysterio.
You guys
Rey signed with WWE in between the cruise announcement and the cruise happening. And so he was
they had to fly him home from the Bahamas. He didn't even stay on the rest of the cruise. He did it and got out in the Bahamas, and
he insisted making the booking because his name was advertised, and he stayed for so long to do that meet and greet because his line was like up 3 flights of stairs, like out of the autograph room, up the stairs. And I remember I don't think I've ever gotten this starstruck with anybody other than maybe like James Hetfield because it was so cool meeting him.
You were floating. I remember you floating on air. You're like, I'm going over there, getting
I gotta do this, guys.
It was really sweet. And he, I remember the next day, like being in that Haven where or the VIP, whatever it is, green room, and there's a ping pong table in there, and Conan's playing ping pong with the kid with a hoodie over his head, and I'm like, God, I really played ping pong a while. Then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh shit, that's Rey. Like it sort of dawned on me, like that's just Rey Mysterio with the hoodie over his head, like probably taking a break. But that was the cruise where everyone fell in love with LAX. Like I remember they came on and impressed everybody, and I know Chris met them through Conan and Carlos, and they really hit it off. And I feel like Brian Cage was there, but it's funny, everyone was there for a different company. Jay Lethal was there for something, and Colt, and even JR, right? So like it all really, I think it changed wrestling history, to be honest. Like I really feel strongly it did. And then and then the next year was the first time they televised it, and it was the first time everyone sung Judas live. Right?
Oh, seeing a Dynamite on the boat. That was the coolest thing. Like I didn't think it would be as cool as when I got there watching wrestling, like on the open sea. Like that's a very unique thing. That's like WCW Spring Break Club La Vila shit. Like so cool.
I think the vibe. I think the reputation, right, is like, oh my God, wrestling for 5 days. That sounds like a nightmare. I'm like, this is heaven. This is so lovely, and everyone there is a fellow. For the most part, like. Wrestling fans are awesome, and some of them are a bit out there, but like still got to pay a couple grand to get on the boat, right? Probably weeds out some crazies, but they've become a great community. They almost like self-police themselves, and here we are in January. We're going to do the 5th cruise, number 5 alive. So and this cruise, this one sold out within a week of announcing before even talent was announced. So like. Very proud of Chris and Mark. Mark is Chris's manager and partner in this, and they never gave up and did this for years. And now, went through the pandemic and everything else, and now it's great. And the cool thing behind the scenes is a lot of the wrestlers are like, "Can I just come back? Like my family has such a good time. Like I'll do another signing." So like Mick Foley or Hacksaw or Beefcake, those guys are always like. I'll come for free. Like they had a really lovely time. And what's nice is, like, after a day, I think the excitement of like, oh wow, that's Brutus Beefcake, like getting an omelet, like it sort of wears off, and then everyone's sort of chill, and it's really respectful and well, you've been on the boat. It's so much fun. Like it's really,
it's a lot of fun.
I can't say enough about it. It's like really, for me, I work in music, so I'm never like, oh my God, it's so and so. Like we've sort of seen it all, did it all, but in rest, like when Ricky the Dragon Steamboat like walks by you in catering, I'm like, oh my God, like I literally mark the fuck out like with some of those guys. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my God, it's Mike Rotundo.
Just getting to observe them be human beings, because you only see them as these larger than life characters. Like, oh yeah, of course Ricky Steamboat likes egg whites. What else would he be eating? The man stays in shape.
Our buddy Pat had this, he knows a story where like it was kind of cool. Like we were on, there was like this weird moment where MVP kept on like cutting me online and then being like, then he was that guy who was like, hey, do you have an extra piece of gum? I'm like, yes, MVP. Then he cut me on the omelet line. I'm like, just go, MVP. And then like the next day, he was like he was the entrant in the Royal Rumble.
Oh wow.
And I was like, couldn't discuss that online, son of a bitch. It's really cool. It's just, I can't say enough about it. And I know it sells out every year, but if fans could experience it, it's really cool. And back to your question, would I ever wrestle? No, because there's a lot of drinking on this boat, Rob. There's a lot of excess on this boat, Rob. One night, me and the boys ended up back in Chris's room, and I definitely wrestled him, and I am not.
You wrestled the world champion. He beat The Rock and Steve Austin in one night.
And me and Kevin and Pat one night. he twisted me into a pretzel pretty quickly. I don't remember much of it.
I was gonna say, one thing I remember from the first cruise is it was like late at night. This was after like 12:31, and we are at like the nightclub portion of the cruise.
Oh yeah.
And we saw LAX there, and there was just one girl talking to Santana, and just by his body language, you could tell this guy did not want to be talking to this girl, but she would not
full punishment.
Yeah, like full on punishment. And you were such a great bro. You totally went in and saved him. And you like, what do you remember this? Like, what did you say to him?
Yeah, so I walked over to Ortiz. Ortiz is the man. And I found out Ortiz is from like Ortiz and he just did it in the promo. They're like Avenue D, they're like East Village dudes. So like we all grew up in the same neighborhood. Like, and I went over, I'm like, hey man, are you I think I said, are you ready for that signing? Like a total like production move. And he's like, are you ready for the signing? He's like, what signing? I'm like, they're signing right now. And he's like, bro, I'm like, let's do it. And it was like, love lift us up where we belong. I took him out of there. And he's like,
I remember they were confused.
He had no
right?
idea. He's like,
yeah.
He was like, so where's the signing? I'm like, that you just look like you were being tortured. He's like, and the handshakes, the bro hugs. So you kind of know, like, how many times have you or I in work have to sit there while like someone's awkwardly talking to a rock star and you're just like, oh wait, oh this sucks, and where you can see someone being punished or tortured. And listen, I walk around I have to walk around a festival for days on end with Matt Pinfield, who everyone's like, are you Matt Pinfield? And he's like, yes. Or Jose now, like, God bless him. Like, yeah, everyone knows him now. So like, you really can't walk around too much of those festivals that get stopped. I'm brutally anonymous. It's quite fun. But those guys get stopped, and they're so gregarious and love talking with everybody. So, yeah.
So I do also want to mention. You're a great talker. You love talking to people too. I think you'll get it in due time. Now that a Power Hour is on after New Japan, that's it. You're gonna get all these New Japan fans coming up to you, giving you the bow. The 2 hands.
I'm the next Will Ospreay. It's happening.
But I do want to talk about Z2 Comics. You have a great comic company.
I do have a day job.
That's right. So you're not just out there traveling the festival circuit, hanging out with bands. Yeah. You're also creating intricate comics around the lore of bands. And I want to know, who would be your dream pro wrestler to do a comic series about?
Oh man. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Z2, really fun company. I started with some friends a couple years ago that, basically I was getting into the dark side of our business, which is selling ads and sponsorships, as you know. And I went to art school, so I'm a creative guy, and I wanted to always. I felt if I didn't use it, I would lose it, So I always wanted to have an outlet for some of the creative stuff. And I'm a comic guy at heart, and went to college to do comic books, and worked in comics early in my career before music. So we started doing these music, graphic novels, but basically mixing the two together, similar to what I do with wrestling, right? And we very quickly started doing these fun projects together with, Andy Biersack and Dan Auerbach and the Baby Metal, Grateful Dead. And when the pandemic hit, all these bands lost their day jobs. So we very quickly, taught them how to make graphic novels and basically find ways to make money, when touring couldn't happen. And then we didn't look back from there. We're about 75 books deep now. We work with everybody from the Grateful Dead to the Gorillaz, and especially in the metal space and the rock space, Pantera, Dio, Anthrax, King Diamond, Spirit Box, Hailstorm just came out, Dee Snider, and it's so cool because all these bands really have already created their own Marvel or DC universes. Like we know, the characters and all these bands and songs, and they've been singing them to us for years. So now it's just a cool way to, and one of the coolest things I loved about heavy metal always was the great art. So why not expand upon that? So, and my dream comic book, it's funny. It's hard to say because I feel like I love all those shows on Vice, like the Dark Side of the Ring or the Territories. Like that's what I would love to do, and they're just doing it better. I guess Ric Flair. Ric Flair is the one. Ric Flair is my guy, but we'll see. I would love to do what we're doing for wrestlers. I think, I need the full blessing of WWE, right? I don't know how that all works, but I will say any comic books that I've seen in wrestling so far are like not for me. And that's how I feel about music comics.
In the late 90s, I remember there was like an Undertaker comic. Or have you ever gotten any of those Warrior comics? The Ultimate Warrior one?
Like of all, I'll use some Yiddish here. Like those comics are rough. And when I interned at Marvel when I was in high school, we published a WCW comic, which I have. Like one cover is like Sting, one is like Vader, one's like Johnny B. Bad. It's so shitty. But it was an insult to comic fans. It's like, hey Sting, like, hey Rick Steiner, what's going on? Like, I'm a dog-faced gremlin. There's one guy, it's called Headlock Comics. He's great. He super talented guy, great designer, and he does a lot of stuff with the wrestlers. He's like the Z2 of wrestling. He does a lot of cool stuff. Like I would love to do more stuff with him. I'm very impressed with him, and he has Scott Steiner at his booth this year. And I went over to Scott Steiner. I'm like, oh my god, like you're here. What are you doing here? So I'm doing a signing. I'm like, and it was like $50 to take a photo. I'm like. I was like, I'll buy an NWO. I offered to buy an NWO shirt. And he's like, extra large and up. I'm like, sorry. Good seeing you.
He's targeting the wrestling demo with those XL and up.
I was like, you got a medium? He's like, no. I'm like, I guess I'll hit the gym. He's like, you might want to. I'm like, all right.
And I guess New York Comic Con is coming up too, right? Are you going to be hanging out there?
We'll be at booth 4509 at New York Comic Con next Thursday, this Thursday through Sunday. And we're going to have Hailstorm signing with us. Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, all of Guar are coming. Alan Robert from Life of Agony. And then on Sunday at 2:00, myself and all the contributors to the Weird Al book will be doing a signing as well.
And this is the 12th to the 15th, right?
Yes, at the Javits Center in New York City, and come by. I'll be there all weekend long with my Z2 compatriots, and we'd love to meet you and say hi. Comic books, wrestling, heavy metal, pastrami. That's all I want to do. All I want to do, Rob.
Before we go, I just want to ask, like, what was it dealing with Weird Al? Like, that must have been so cool. Like, for me, he's such an icon and he has such an important place in my development of like comedy, you know, of senses of humor, and here you are telling his story through graphics.
He's a nightmare, and he's a fucking menace. Weird Al is like the nicest. You know when he does cameos in movies, like a Naked Gun, like, hey, it's Weird Al, and like he's 100% that guy.
That
like
version?
he's lovely, and Never Meet Your Heroes. He's so cool and so nice, and it was such a great process, and he was so hands-on with the process. Like he's a comic fan, he's an independent comic fan, so like our book is basically the illustrated Al. It's illustrated. We illustrated every original song he wrote that there was ever a music video for. We basically gave it a video, so to speak. But to do that, we got every like famous Mad Magazine, Cracked, like alt weekly, like independent comic artist to come out of retirement and illustrate his comics. So it's a love letter to him, but he like sort of was like curated. He's like, oh, like Dare to Be Stupid with this guy would be perfect, and like Dog Eat Dog with this artist would be great. Oh, that was the Mad Magazine cover artist, they should do this one. So it's a perfect pairing. And I think we did an unboxing with him that was a legit unboxing. Like we opened it in his face, and he was taken aback, and it's kind of cool to be in the room when that happened this week with Pantera. Like I unboxed the boxes in front of them, and Rex Brown was like moved and like affected.
So cool.
And Phil was like affected, and like the hug, it was like a hug after, like, because the same level of trust that like Weird Al's like, I trust you, is like Phil and Selma being like, I trust you. And you're like, I have to do this correctly, right? I'm going to look at that guy in the eye later and be like, did I do a good job? Are you happy? Did I make you proud? They're lending me their name. I have to do a perfect job. I have to, it has to be an official product. So it's an extension of Al. I represent him. I have to be perfect. I can't say anything stupid.
And it's so cool that it's an excuse to work with all these artists too. I didn't even consider that. Like, hey, I'm working with this Mad Magazine cover artist and all that, and figuring out which artist works for which musician.
They're my idols, and they're Weird Al's idols. So like Weird Al's like, I got Sam Viviano. Sam retired, and he was the art director from 1977 to like 2003, like of Mad. And Sam's art, right? Peter Bagg from Hate. Bill Plimpton. I went to a Bill Plimpton animation festival when I was 12. Like he drew One More Minute. Like that's Mike Allred, cover artist. Like that was so cool. I mean, Drew Freeman used to do the cover of Screw Magazine in New York, or Spy Magazine when we were kids. Like, and of course Mad Magazine. Like these guys are icons to me and Al. So it's really cool, and game recognized game. I don't know what to say. It's pretty rad. And that's the other thing we're doing a lot of. You'll see, we're about to announce a blank O negative book, and all the artists, all the writers of the book every single chapter is written by a famous rock star, or writing their interpretation of Christian Woman, or Black Number One, or Kill All the White People. So it's like it's pretty insane, and we're really pushing the boundaries of what these projects could be, because we're fans ourselves.
Is there a chapter on the Playgirl photo shoot? Is there like an illustrated version of the?
Well,
the
Rob, it's I don't think I need to tell you that it's a centerfold.
That's good to know. Good to know. So that's great. Awesome, Josh. Thank you so much for hanging out and giving me some of your time in an interview capacity, as opposed to just pure bullshitting back and forth capacity.
For those who don't know, Rob is one of the best people on the planet, and I love him. Any excuse to hang out with you and talk about all the things that we love. Bring it on.
Yeah. So Z2comics.com, that's the website where people get
Z2comics.com and Z2 on Instagram. Check all that out. Power Hour, Thursday nights on AXS TV, 11 p.m. following New Japan Pro Wrestling and Impact. Yeah, we'll be at New York Comic Con this weekend, booth 4509. Come swing by, and you might see me and Rob, at a kosher deli at a Mets game as well. Who knows?
Yeah.
You never know.
If you run into Josh at a festival, give him a pre-roll. He needs it.
I have, but you could give me. That happened. I got that happened this weekend. I saw Jose. I'm like, you want to head out? He's like, dude, a fan just gave me all this, and it was like a satchel. I was like, Oh my God. Imagine like like it's in our lifetime that we can now go to a festival in California and just like
It's amazing. It's beautiful.
it's and it's the forecast for THC is in the high 40s, my friend. It's summertime, the living's easy. It's really nice out here. It's been lovely. I'll bring you some treats home.
Lovely.